If you're someone looking to be inspired right now, then this is the video for you. Today, I'm sharing the 5 most powerful stories that have absolutely changed my life. If you want to know what they are, keep watching. I post videos every Tuesday about how you can live an intentional and meaningful life. If that sounds like it's interesting to you, then make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. I'm Komal, and I was born to tell stories. My first documentary film, Dream Girl, a film about female entrepreneurs, premiered at the Obama White House. That experience changed my life, and it cemented for me the fact that stories do change the world. Now, let's get into the 5 incredible stories that changed my life, and I know that will change yours. The first is the story of Marianne and Daniel Pearl. Daniel Pearl was a Wall Street Journal journalist who was kidnapped in Karachi in Pakistan in 2002. He was later beheaded on camera by Arab extremists. How I learned of his story was through Marianne Pearl and her global diaries that she did with Glamour magazine. Marianne wrote a memoir called A Mighty Heart, which was later turned into a film where Angelina Jolie played her character in the film. The book detailed her experience around learning of her husband's kidnapping and her story of searching for him and the heartbreak that came after his passing. The book also leads into what would become her next series of projects. She created a series for Glamour called In Search of Hope, the Global Diaries of Marianne Pearl, where she would feature different world-changing women from around the world. I was in my mid to late teens when I heard of their story, and I started reading her Global Diaries in Glamour monthly. And it totally changed my life and perspective on the world. It made me respect journalism so much more, and it kind of pushed me in that direction to study it for university. I highly recommend going back and reading these articles online at glamour.com. The second story that changed my life came from the book, O's Little Guide to Starting Over. When I left New York City after getting really sick with a neurological illness back in January 2017, it was shortly after I had recovered and survived cancer. This book came into my life via Shoppers Drug Mart. I was just walking around and saw this and decided to pick it up. And it's short essays and stories about starting your life over, picking yourself back up, and moving forward in your life with positivity and resilience. There's one story in particular that talks about the phases of recovery post-cancer that really stuck with me. So the short essay is called From Shock to Awe by Kelly Corrigan, and she outlines different stages that come post-cancer. The first, increased surveillance. You're just more aware of illnesses and potential risks to your health and overall well-being because you've been so on edge for so long. Number 2, the slip and slide. The slip and slide. If anything is wrong with you, then everything is wrong with you. I remember that phase very, very much. Stage 3, connection, realizing that your experience with cancer, it can actually help other people and you can make an impact on others' lives, or you can just provide solace. And oh my God, the number of times that has happened it's gonna make me cry because it's such a silver lining I had in my recovery and experience with cancer. It was just, this is something that A, has deepened my own empathy and ability to connect with others, and B, just there is a silver lining to it, and I'm choosing to see the gift in my former diagnosis and in the illnesses that I've been through. So the fourth is wide angle amazement, just being so in awe of life and the opportunities that now you have the chance to experience again that you didn't know if you would be alive to experience. This is actually really true around my wedding. I just had this real amazing moment a little bit ago where I just felt the awe of the privilege I have to be married to someone who loves me so deeply and who I love so deeply. And the depth with which I feel that joy, I don't think I would fully be able to have without having gone through such a dark time in my life. So I highly recommend O's Little Guide to Starting Over, and specifically that essay. Now, number 3. This one is also related to Glamour magazine. If you can tell, it is a magazine that's very dear to my heart. It's one that I read a whole bunch growing up, and that inspired me a lot as a young woman, especially for the international relations, international impact side of the magazine. So this article was written by Eve Ensler, the writer of the Vagina Monologues, and it profiled a man, Dr. Mukwege. He's a doctor in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, who established a hospital that does fistula reparations and works with women after they have been raped and their bodies have been invaded. So the instance of rape in the Congo is significantly high and has been so because of a lot of the militia wars that have gone on in the country. It's a really complex issue that I can't go into here, but this story, it opened my eyes to the conflicts that were happening there, and specifically the use of rape as a weapon of war and femicide in the DRC. And that article planted the seed that would become 4 years of my undergraduate degree studies in human rights. I focused exclusively on the DRC, and I had such a passion for what Dr. Mukwege was doing and the space and haven that he created for women. It's called The City of Joy, and Eve Ensler funded it. And I haven't actually read about it in quite some time, but it was something that really inspired me at that specific point in my life. Now, before I tell you my last 2 stories that changed my life, I want to hear from you. Has there been a story that has completely shifted how you see the world, how you engage with the world? If so, tell me about it in the comments below. Next up, number 4, is a classic that a lot of you might have read in high school, Tuesdays with Morrie. It is about a young student who catches wind that one of his former teachers is on his deathbed, and he goes and every Tuesday spends time with him and learns some of life's greatest lessons. I did a book report for it, I think in like 11th grade, and I drew as part of you had to do a physical representation of the text that you were reading, and I drew this beautiful portrait of Morrie looking out the window and this reflection of himself as a young man, and then you see everything that's happening on the street. And I remember it so vividly because a lot of the lessons I learned from that book I applied in my life multiple times, and it gave me a framework as a young person to relate to and understand a lot of the challenging things that I was going through in my life at that time, and to find gratitude and hope and resilience in a lot of those things. So that book was a total game changer for me. Number 5, this is also another book that really transformed my life, and it's called Born Confused by Thanuja Desai Hidhir. And it's about a young South Asian teenager who grew up in New Jersey, and just her experience growing up in a new culture, being a third culture kid, being born confused. And it hit home for me tenfold when I was 12 to 14 years old when I read it multiple times, because it was the first piece of literature where I felt really seen. This character was like me, South Asian, going through so many different experiences, living in a different culture than her parents, and just trying to make sense of life. And it just made me feel so much solace and so much connection. And so I absolutely adore that book. So those were 5 stories that completely changed my life. A lot of them hit me in my adolescent teenage years, and I'm so happy I was able to share them here with you today. I made this video as a reminder of the power of stories. We all can impact the lives of others just by telling the stories that are in our hearts to tell. So I hope you'll consider telling the world your story. If you feel like there is a story in you that you want to share with the world, but you're worried about the feedback or criticism that might come in, check out my video from last week where I tell you my 4 essentials to sharing your story and standing up for your beliefs in the face of being inundated with feedback. And if you want to keep this conversation going, head over to my Instagram and follow me, because I do daily posts just for you. And before you go, don't forget to comment below with a story that changed your life. I make videos every Tuesday, but we're gonna take a quick break for a couple of weeks. Every summer and every winter, we do a 2-week company shutdown. This year's shutdown happens to be right after my wedding, which just happened. So I'm gonna take a bit of downtime with my husband. Wow, that has a nice ring to it. And we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with some new content just for you. When we come back, I'm actually going to be doing a series about how you can intentionally and consciously plan your wedding. I'm so excited to share what I've learned from my experience getting married so that you can have it be the most love-filled event possible. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. See you then, warriors.